If you want to buy a vape pen online, you need to prove you're over 21.
That little thing that you push that says, yes, I verify that I'm over 18 or over 21.
No, I mean like more than just pushing a button online.
That's all it is.
Wait, really?
She said, legally, that's all we have to do.
Wow, somebody should do a story about that. Good thing I have my own show. Last week, Salem looked like this. Today, it looked like this. But if you ask Representative Bill Post from Kaiser, it looked like this, at least from where he's sitting. And we're going to answer a real ID question that we've probably answered maybe 1,000,000 times already. We've only been on the air for 3 weeks, but that's okay. It's like my job. Here's the story.
You can keep asking questions. You don't have to watch us every night. Yeah, you do. Come on. Hey, is it that time already? 6 o'clock? Thanks for being with us. Keep sending your questions in. We love it. It's kind of the bread and butter of the show here. Hi, I'm Dan Haggerty. Welcome to The Story. This is the show best enjoyed with your phone in your hand, so pick it up, follow us at The Story KGW, use the hashtag HeyDan. The whole goal here is to make you part of the story. Help us tell this thing. And overwhelmingly, I'd say the story that most of you are talking about is the closing of Concordia University. I don't blame you. This is a big story. There's a lot of anxiety coming off of that campus right now, and a lot of sadness. Concordia meant a lot to a lot of people, and it touched a lot of lives. In fact, we're going to get started with our quote of the day, taking from Concordia's own promise to its students. Quote, all students of Concordia University, Portland will be actively engaged in a university that enjoys a strong national reputation. Now, a funny story about that quote. A student is planning to file a class action lawsuit against Concordia, and the promise at the center of that quote is at the center of his complaint. William Spalding says Concordia misrepresented the quality of its education services, and he thinks if students knew about its shaky financial situation, they wouldn't have enrolled. Spalding hasn't said how much he's suing for, but at this point he's inviting other students to come on in and join the lawsuit. Now, like I said at the top, tons of people have been writing in using the hashtag HeyDan, including Kathy Gillette. She wrote in on my Facebook saying, given that enrollment dropped so significantly the past 4 years, some people must have been aware that there were problems at the school. Well, Kathy, you're in luck, because we're going to be diving into that topic, that exact thing, in just a few minutes. Kyle Aboshi looked into some red flags to look out for in situations like this. By the way, I want to mention, for what it's worth, other universities are stepping up, doing the best they can to offer and help some students who might need a place to go after April, including Corbin University in Salem. Now, I'm not exactly sure of the definition of their help right now, but we'll try and figure it out for you. All right, that brings us to our big story tonight, vaping. Okay, whoa. Calm down. Whenever we start talking about vaping, there's a certain group of people that gets really fired up about it, but we'll try and explain ourselves here. This story, in my opinion, is all about common sense. For example, a teenager can't just go into a Plaid Pantry, for instance, and buy vape juice. They'll get in trouble. They'll get busted. But online, there isn't a cashier to check their ID or somebody to say, hey, you look underage. Cristin Severance talked to a mom whose son figured that out.
And it's small, and it's technology, and it feels cool to them, and they can hide it.
Jen Dryden figured out her 14-year-old son
Yep, kids are smart.
Was secretly vaping after his dad found an invoice from an online vaping company called All Puffs.
You know, we asked him, well, why did you buy it, and how did you buy it? And he said, you know, typical teenager kind of stuff. He said, oh, it's for a friend. And we said, okay, trust but verify. And then about a week later, his dad went at his phone and found, I would say conservatively, about 100 videos of him vaping. And he did not look like an amateur, let's put it that way.
More than 1 in 4 high school students have vaped in the last month, according to the Centers for Disease Control. Health officials say social media played a big part in vaping's popularity among young people. Even though social media companies have cracked down on things like sponsored vaping posts, the hashtag vape has 28 million posts on Instagram. The hashtag vape tricks has 5.4 million posts. That's where users blow vape rings to their thousands of followers. Jen said her son was no vape influencer, but he was far from a first-timer.
And when you saw the videos, so was he like doing tricks? Like you said, he wasn't an amateur.
No. He had clearly been practicing and doing this for quite some time. It did not look like someone who had just picked up the vape pen and started doing it. So, I mean, I felt like, I don't even know who this person is that I was, you know, all these videos I was watching him and I was like, who is my son? It was a real jolt as a mother.
Her son spent the next 3 months grounded and in his bedroom. But she said that punishment wasn't enough. She called All Puffs, the Ohio-based vaping company.
And I said, so I want to tell you that my 14-year-old bought some product from your company's website, and I'd like to find out how exactly that happened. So can you, I had the invoice. So I said, can you look up this account number and explain to me how a 14-year-old is allowed to do that? And her first reaction was, well, we have an attestation button on our app. And an attestation button is that little thing that you push that says, yes, I verify that I'm over 18 or over 21, yes, no. And that's all it is. And I said, you're not seriously on the other end of this phone telling me that that's how you can tell if someone's of age? She said, legally, that's all we have to do.
The woman was right, and Jen was mad, especially when she learned her son bought the vape juice with a prepaid credit card.
You just click and buy.
Jen went online and filed a complaint with the state and called a bunch of politicians.
And then I also said, I'm going to call some people. So I called Kate Brown's office, and I called Earl Blumenauer's office, and I called Jeff Merkley's office, and I got interns probably, or whoever was picking up the phone, and they listened to my complaint, and they said, thank you very much for submitting your...
But you didn't feel very heard.
And honestly, no, Cristin, I didn't. I felt like, well, I did my part, and I didn't think I was going to hear anything. So
But someone was listening. Oregon Attorney General Ellen Rosenblum.
This is a huge problem.
Her office got Jen's complaint, contacted All Puffs, and now the company can no longer sell online to anyone in Oregon again.
So they've agreed to voluntarily comply with an agreement that is that they will not do business in the state any longer. They will not do online sales business in the state with regard to e-cigarettes. Period, the end. Because we didn't feel that there was any way to really monitor this age verification with this company.
Jen could not believe this news.
I was jumping up and down with ecstasy. I mean, I was telling all my friends at work, I couldn't believe it. I forwarded it to people. I said, you're not going to believe what happened. I kind of felt like Aaron Brockovich a little bit.
The state wants to take that ban further.
And so we have determined that we want to not only go after individual companies like All Puffs, but we want to take a broader brush policy approach. And so
Rosenblum introduced legislation that would ban all online sales of vaping and e-cigarette products to consumers in Oregon. It's just like the ban of online sales of cigarettes in this state.
I think it's the perfect legislation, and it needs to happen. It needs to happen now. And I know that's just for Oregon, but I'd love to see it in every state too.
Cristin Severance joining us now. You reached out to the company. You haven't heard back.
No, it happens.
But you have heard from a lot of people online. I will say vaping stories bring out this community of people who are willing to defend this vaping pretty hard on the internet.
Right. I've heard from them. I remember the last vaping story I did. Go online. Look at the YouTube comments. People accused me of working for Big Tobacco.
If only we had that kind of money. So in their defense, though, people say that vaping helped them quit cigarettes, maybe even save their life.
That's true, but at the end of the day, this is not that conversation. I think we can all agree that kids should not be vaping.
Do you think this bill will pass?
I do. This is just like the cigarette ban here. You can't go online in Oregon and buy cigarettes, and now you won't be able to buy vaping products.
All right, we'll see what happens. Cristin, thank you.
Okay, so have you been able to keep up with all the different vape bans in the U.S., or in Oregon, or in Washington? Yeah, it's a lot. So how did we get here? Vaping has been around for a while, but talks of banning it started last September. That's when people nationwide started getting sick and dying, and it was linked to vaping. 2 people died in Oregon. On October 15, 2019, Governor Brown announced a 6-month ban on flavored vape products. But it only lasted for 2 days until the Oregon Appeals Court halted the ban. Then the feds got involved. On January 2nd of this year, President Trump announced his plan to end the sales of certain flavors of e-cigs. Then, on January 15th, Washington Governor Jay Inslee got involved, introducing a bill to temporarily ban the sale of flavored vapes. Then, just a few days ago, on February 6th, the FDA's partial ban went into effect. So did that clear the smoke for you, or the vapor? Hopefully it did, because that's how we got here.
So last week, protesters against cap and trade came to the Capitol, and they brought a lot of loud trucks with them. To remind you, here's some video of loud trucks. Okay, you remember now? Good. So today, people who support cap and trade showed up in Salem for their own rally. And if you believe this tweet by Republican Representative Bill Post, it looks like no one showed up. He tweeted 2 photos here, the view from his office. One showed a crowd during the Timber Unity rally. The other, he says, was taken today and doesn't show a lot of people. Nice try, sir, but if you just walked outside of your office, turned the corner, you would see, well, you'd see a lot more people. A lot of people showed up calling on lawmakers to pass cap and trade. They just didn't hold their rally directly across from Representative Post's office. We pointed this out to him on Twitter, but he insisted that the timber rally was still bigger, which is fine. Okay. So while that was going on outside, lawmakers were debating cap and trade inside, and they even name-dropped somebody you might be familiar with.
In December, Pat Duras of KGW released a report called The Power Struggle. If you haven't watched it, I would highly recommend you look it up and check it out.
Highly recommend. We'll take it. So that was Republican Representative Daniel Bonham. He went on to quote parts of Pat's Power Struggle series to argue against cap and trade because it could shut down coal plants and people would lose their jobs. Now, the series also looks at the negative impacts of coal plants and the problems with burning coal. Pat's got another Power Struggle story coming up here on The Story on Thursday. In the meantime, you should hop on there and check out the rest on our KGW YouTube page. So we've been talking about cap and trade pretty much every single night since we've been on. It is a really big issue right now, and we want to make sure that everybody is on the same page, especially since I got this text from my mom. She streams the show every single night from West Virginia, and she wrote me and said, "You look tan, LOL." That's funny because I'm notoriously pale. But she went on to say, "Don't judge me, but I don't entirely understand what cap and trade is." So let's start with a really simple definition. The first line of the bill's summary says it would modify statewide greenhouse gas emissions reduction goals. Yikes. Let's translate that. It would limit the amount of emissions that Oregonians pump into the atmosphere over time. So from cars and trucks and tractors and factories and things like that. Now that's the short answer. Here is the longer one. Cap and trade would eventually limit emissions in Oregon to 45% below the level they were at in 1990. That is the cap part. They put a cap on those emissions. That would all happen over 15 years. We'd grow to that point. Big greenhouse gas emitters, big companies, people with lots of trucks, big factories, they would have to get a permit to release a metric ton of emissions. They can then trade credits with each other. So if your company emits less than you're allowed, you can sell your leftovers. If you need more than you're allowed, you will have to buy them from those other companies. So how does that impact you and me? Well, part of the plan would gradually make it more expensive for big gas companies to bring gasoline into the state. But the extra fees on gas will only be in larger cities, they say. But believe it or not, this isn't everything that the bill covers. There's more. If you really want the expert level information about cap and trade, well, you're going to have to read the thing. It's 86 pages long. It's not fun. Just look at this thing. It goes and goes and goes, and it's even less interesting than it looks here. These are all the proposed amendments that may or may not make it into the bill. So we're going to have to keep you updated on where the bill goes next.
Oregon's bag ban, good for the environment and really good for companies that are making more bags. And we're answering another one of your questions about Real ID because, we'll take any opportunity we can to talk about how bad Oregon's rollout has been when the story continues.
Hey, welcome back. We are happy to have you, of course. Thanks for taking time to talk to us using the hashtag HeyDan. We want to bring back a comment that I mentioned a little earlier here in the newscast from Kathy Gillette about the sudden closure of Concordia University. She posted what you're seeing there. Given that enrollment dropped so significantly the past 4 years, some people must have been aware of the problems at the school. So we actually were wondering the exact same thing too, Kathy. So Kyla Boshi went looking for a couple red flags.
Concordia University caught a lot of people off guard, including its own students, with the announcement Monday it would close at the end of the spring 2020 semester. But should we really be surprised? Concordia is just the latest in a string of private nonprofit colleges that shut down in the Portland area, following Marylhurst University and the Oregon College of Art and Craft.
The big question at this point is not whether there will be more closures, it's how many.
Rick Seltzer, who writes for the online publication Inside Higher Ed, warns many small colleges across the country are facing immense financial pressure, which could lead to more closures.
My sense is, from talking to different people, from looking at different financial statements, from doing a lot of reporting on this, that we're likely to fall somewhere in the 10 to 15 range every year.
The biggest warning sign at Concordia was a decline in revenue. Quite simply, the 115-year-old institution didn't have enough money. Interim President Tom Rees even said so.
It has had negative cash flow for quite some time.
Concordia's annual report showed revenue fell from $116 million in 2017 to $113 million in 2018. And most of that money comes from tuition. And there's the problem. Concordia admits enrollment is way down, and most students aren't paying full sticker price. We broke it down. Only 1% are paying full tuition. Compare that to Lewis and Clark, where 10% pay full price, or Reed College, where almost half of all freshmen pay full price for tuition. The other warning sign, increasing costs. Competition to attract students is fierce, so schools must spend more and more on those fancy buildings. Concordia's Vision 2024 plan promoted Concordia will continue to enhance and expand its physical campuses. In addition to new buildings, the school must pay fixed costs like salaries. And then there are new challenges and competition, specifically online. For example, Oregon State University has 13,000 students taking classes online, according to its president, Ed Ray.
We actually grew this year, while I think the national norm was decline. But it's because we're trying to meet learners where they are.
Concordia saw growth in an online teaching program, but it came at a cost. According to the Oregonian, the school paid $160 million to a private contractor to handle its online graduate degree program, attracting the attention of federal investigators.
You can almost always, with a little bit of effort, go back and find factors that seem to point to potential financial trouble.
The challenge is identifying schools that are struggling before they go under and figuring out ways to help.
All right, Kyle joining us now. So is this the kind, do parents have to think about this sort of thing now? I can remember going college hunting and stuff like that. Right. One of the discussions I had with my parents was not, will this place stay open for 4 years?
Right, you don't think you have to ask that question, right?
How can people protect themselves?
Well, you've got to do some research, and there's some information out there. Digging into their financials, looking at enrollment numbers, that might tell you something. But ultimately, these small schools, they're tenacious, getting through tough times, and often have to face that. A lot of times it's a big-time donor that can save the school and get them through these really rough patches.
One of the things I found really interesting, we were talking about this earlier, was the comments you made about the demographics of people who are going to college now are changing.
It is changing. So there are fewer 18-year-olds heading off to school, fewer enrollment, less revenue.
Parents, if you got a kid headed off to college, just another thing to add to the checklist. Kyle, thank you.
Hey everybody, I'm Matt Safino. So the story today is the fact that Portland, unlike much of the rest of the state, had no sunshine, at least very, very little. But look at this scene from the Dalles. Looking back west of Mountain Hood, cloaked in cloud cover. Really interesting cloud pattern there, which we could see reflected in the satellite imagery. I'll show you here in a second. As this rolls, you'll see these lines of clouds right here, kind of moving from northwest to southeast. Those are mountain wave clouds. They do this. They go like that. And up here is where the cloud forms, and down here is where the clear forms. So kind of a cool cloud formation seen over much of Oregon today. The headlines, mostly cloudy, of course, in Portland overnight. Surprise, surprise, right? But we will get some sun breaks tomorrow after a little bit of morning drizzle, which shouldn't be a big deal. And then we get a bunch of snow over the weekend, which is great timing for holiday skiers because this is, after all, holiday weekend. Portland only 44 today, way below average by like 8 degrees. But did you know you didn't have to leave the state of Oregon to find 70 today? Brookings on the southern Oregon coast here hit 70, and they were close to 60, the Dalles, Hermiston, and Pendleton. So in spite of our gloomy, cool day, it was really warm in much of the state. This system, not a player for us, but the next several ones will be as we go back to dry condition, or back to stormy conditions over the weekend and beyond. So our forecast looks like this. Morning drizzle, then 51 tomorrow as we warm things up. We'll get some sun tomorrow, better chance for sun tomorrow than we had today. Rain on Thursday turns to showers, showers on Friday, more rain Saturday, showers again on Sunday. You get the idea here. There's a lot of rain beginning on Thursday. Valentine's Day, for your sweetheart, it looks rather showery. President's Day, if you have the day off, sun and showers, and it looks like we'll bag another dry day probably Tuesday of next week.
Sounds good, Matt. Thank you. So a lot of you watch us with a phone in your hand, and we like that because you reach out and you talk to us. Use the hashtag #HeyDan. I'm needy, so I'd like to know that you're listening to us and you have something to say. Please keep it coming. We love it. We are getting some things that we've heard before, though, like this question here. Barry tweeted me asking, "What's with real IDs in order to board a plane? Are we still assuming we travel with covered wagons?" How come the state can't make it happen sooner? Well, Barry, we have answered this one a few times on the show, but we're happy to do it again. I don't blame you for not knowing. Aren't you watching this every night? Oregon's rollout of Real ID is a well-documented hot mess. So, long story short, the Oregon legislature voted in 2017 to allow the state to issue Real IDs starting in July 2020. The DMV needed to overhaul its computer, so that takes a really long time, and that delayed it even more. You can check out the KGW YouTube page for our piece on Oregon's Real ID dilemma now.
When the story continues, what do you think of Oregon's bag ban so far? Well, you know who really likes it? A company that actually makes bags.
So, you know who loves Oregon's bag ban? These people who make bags. Well, reusable bags, at least. Keely Chalmers is back on the environmental beat for us tonight, talking to a local sewing company with some big plans thanks to the bag ban.
You're inside Spool Town. This is our sewing factory.
But this is not your standard sewing shop. From the giant roll-up glass door to the very visible production floor, transparency is what Spool Town is all about.
So this is it. What you see is what you get. If we can't make it here on site, we don't make it at all.
For the past 9 years, the Portland company has been making bags and accessories for people all over the country. We're talking everything from high-end bags down to simple totes like these.
This is a book tote that gets printed by Powell's Books here in town. These three here are all Travel Portland.
And co-owner Dana Hinger says since Oregon's plastic bag ban went into effect at the beginning of the year, business is getting even better.
Since the bag ban has gone in Portland, we've seen a few alternate companies reach out for sure. Big, small, it's kind of across the board.
Those businesses are looking for reusable bags like these. No question, a much more eco-friendly alternative.
It's canvas for one, it's not plastic, so it's not based out of an oil product for one.
And when it comes to reusing,
this is all scrap that's been saved from the production process of.
It's all part of the sewing factory's philosophy.
And we end up using these as labels for other products.
To cut waste, respect the environment, and give consumers a high-quality, locally made bag they can hold on to for a long time.
Yeah, people love bags. People buy bags to keep forever.
So, Keely Chalmers reporting there. Those totes are $18 and they're totes sustainable. I'm sorry for that joke. You can buy one at spooltown.com. Hey, get out your phone, use the hashtag HeyDan. We're getting a lot of people writing in about Concordia closing. Concordia, am I saying that right? We'll address that in the comments when we finish the story next. Couple of comments, things people writing into me. We're hearing from Breezy Lynn from Instagram saying, Dan, can you please give us some information to get involved in the class action lawsuit against Concordia? Some tells me that they'll find you. We're also hearing from Tea Garden Eld on Twitter. Hey, Dan, it's not Concordia, it's Concordia. Wait, no, it's not Concordia, it's Concordia. I'm doing the best I can, man. Come on. Keely Harris writing in at The Story KGW on Twitter saying, hey, Dan, what happens to students such as my daughter who have graduate loans with CU Portland? Well, I just talked to somebody before the newscast tonight, and I mean, my heart goes out to her. She went to Merrillhurst when that place closed. She transferred to Concordia. Now that place closes. Struck by lightning twice, and she's giving us some advice to people who are going through it now for the first time. We'll have that story for you tomorrow on The Story. For now, that's about it. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Let's send it over to Laurel Porter for the news.